Welcome to the Dare to Rest podcast, my lovely co-human. I have such a good one for us today. Honestly, it might be one of those that annoy you a little bit, but when you stick with it, there's a potential here, a potential for you that you will want to harvest. The episode today is about something that quietly runs like a current throughout everything in your life. And that is your internal credit score. Maybe you already have an idea what this is. If you don't, I really just want to decipher what your internal credit score is. So, an internal credit score, your internal credit score is this inner barometer that gives you confidence and trust in yourself. That feeling of like, I do what I say I'm going to do. Or things always have a way of figuring themselves out when I'm part of the equation. It's that feeling that your word is solid and you always make it work. When your internal credit score is high, you feel fully backed by yourself. When your internal credit score is low, you say you will do the thing, you say you're going to go for the thing, but internally there's a sensation of bracing. And this really is irrespectively of what the thing that you want to go for is, whether that is bettering your health, your money situation, building a business, wanting to call in more love, feeling freedom, better relationships. The sensation of bracing, the feeling of bracing, like, I said I'm going to do it, but something in you hesitate. That bracing comes from the low internal credit score. It's like a small voice at the back of your mind going, I say I do things, but I don't follow through. And energetically and physically, that creates hesitation, it creates overthinking, and also it's the thing that when intensity comes, even as you have started, you drop the ball. Then you feel guilty, and that lowers your score. So it becomes this vicious cycle. And the cost of a low internal credit score is needing external evidence or pressure to move. It's losing faith when not getting results fast enough. Who here has tried that? You can't tell, but I'm putting my hand up really high right now. Some other costs of having a low internal credit score is constantly restarting, wanting to start from scratch instead of staying in the game and refining. This, by the way, is something I have worked so much with so many of my clients. This is a huge indicator of that low internal credit score. A low internal credit score also really gives us that inclination to crave certainty before taking action, wanting to plan everything, know everything, investigate, try everything, rather than moving, because we don't have that feeling of I'm backed by myself. So craving the certainty becomes a way of self-protecting. And another really important cost that comes from having a low internal credit score is having a goal that feels exciting, but it doesn't feel inevitable to you because the trust is not there. And all of these costs to having a low internal credit score is that it makes things feel harder than they need to be. It makes it feel so that things move slower than they could. And it makes it harder for you to stay grounded, to stay in it, to handle that pressure that comes eventually for all of us, always, as we're moving and growing and expanding. And this is, of course, not beneficial to anyone. And it really stresses and emphasizes the importance of having a strong internal credit score, and why it's one of the biggest gifts that you can give to yourself in this life. What I've seen, what I've learned, and also from my own experience, is that a lot of people believe that to sustain the thing they're going to do, what they need is better habits, they need more control, they need more planning, more structure, more following up, more pressure. They believe that this is what will help them feel like the needle moves their way. They have that idea that, they must be doing the wrong thing because things keep almost working but not truly landing. But the issue is not that you're doing the wrong things. And I definitely don't suggest that adding more control and pressure to yourself is the right way forward. Rather, what you want to work with is that feeling of not feeling solid inside yourself. Because not trusting yourself is what makes it feel sticky. It's the energy that's off. And energy always speak louder than any actions. So instead of changing actions, applying more control, more pressure, what we need to work with is building that sensation inside that I have got myself. My word is law. So what I want to do in this episode is to help you flip the game by making 2 minor adjustments that over time will take your internal credit score through the roof. So this will help you build a self-trust that doesn't collapse under pressure. It will give you an increased self-respect. You're going to be able to obtain the ability to hold a desire without gripping it. And with these 2 changes, your momentum is something you're going to be able to create and sustain irrespectively of your mood. And this way, with these 2 minor adjustments to the way you're approaching life and your internal credit score, you're going to cultivate a nervous system that feels safe staying in the game. So you can say this whole episode and how to really amp that up, it really comes down to you building results through energetic credibility instead of hustling. Energetic credibility instead of hustling. That feels so much better in my body, and I have an idea that it will for you as well. So I hope you're ready for this pungent episode. But before we go there, let's just take a breath together. You can place a hand on your heart, if you can, or somewhere on your body, and take a deep breath in. Then exhale out even slower than you breathed in. And do that 2 more times. Inhaling. Exhaling out even slower. One more time, inhaling. And exhaling. Noticing your shoulder drops. and an expansion on the front side of your chest. Maybe rolling your shoulders back. So here's the question I want to start with. Is your word law? Is your word law to yourself? So many of us are impeccable with our word to others. We show up, we deliver, we don't cancel, we do what we say we would do. But when it comes to ourselves, our word often becomes negotiable. And I really want to talk to you about that invisible leak. Because every single promise you make to yourself, even the mental ones, creates a charge. They serve as an input to your internal scorecard. Every time you say, I'll start Monday, I'll do it tomorrow. This time I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna stay off sugar, off carbs, off caffeine for 3 months. Or when you say, I won't do it, and you do it anyway. All those, I should do this, I could do this, I'll do that later. Maybe I should try this. So many promises to ourselves. So much commitment placed all over the world. And some of all of these promises, commitments, some of these are things you actually start and others you won't. So we really have to divide this into 2 different chunks and look at them separately because each of them impact your internal credit score. And I want to go with the only mental commitment first, where we say something to ourselves that we should do this or we could do this or maybe we should try this, but we don't take any action. So often these comes as things from the outside. Maybe it's the one you see when there's a new trend on social media. Oh, I should try this. I do this. So you save the reel, you save the video, and you say to yourself, I should try that. I should do that. I'm going to come back to this later. Whatever you tell yourself. I know I'm not alone with this. Or the mental commitments without action could be thoughts of, I should talk to him about this. I should do something about that. Yet you never really prioritize the time or you muster up the courage to do it, so nothing happens. And all of these small interactions, though only happening mentally, all those mental commitments that you say you should do, could do, potentially would, they are left as unspoken promises or requirements to yourself in the back of your mind. And as you do nothing about them over time, they get stored as proof of another thing you didn't do, though you said you would. Either because you said you would come back to it later and you didn't, or you said you would do it and you didn't. And all of those small mental commitments, they compromise your internal credit score when they are left untouched. The other side of commitments are the ones that you actually start. Maybe you tell yourself, I want to move each day. I want to drink more water. I'm never drinking wine again. I want to call my mom each week. I only want to work 40 hours a week. I want to sleep 8 hours every night. Whatever the promise, whatever the commitment. And you're doing it so well until something happens. either something external, where life hits you, things happen, or internally, because motivation drops. It's not fun anymore. That first surge of, a new thing drops, and there's nothing left. Either way, if it's internal, if it's external, what happens is it's getting hard to follow through. And then you miss it once or twice. And then you drop the ball. Not always as a conscious choice, because life happened, but as a result of the increased pressure. You dropped the ball because you were unable to hold the energy even when life got hard, or even to make a conscious choice to stop your commitment. It sort of just fades out. And that's another damage to your internal credit score. So this is the thing. The biggest damage that we do to that internal credit score happens by repeatedly breaking our self-trust, by not honoring our word to ourselves, either by breaking the trust of stopping without it being a conscious choice, or in overcommitting to things mentally that we never even started. And I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm just calling out our human behavior, because we're all doing this. We've all done this, but we can do this so much better. I have a feeling that what I've said so far is very familiar territory to both you and to me. So what is so much more interesting in this conversation, which honestly is a monologue because this is my podcast and I'm the only one here, but what is much more interesting is how do we strengthen our internal credit score so that we can trust ourselves more deeply, to be the one who follows through, to be the one who has our own back. What can we do to learn to hold the pressure of the world and of our commitments so that your word becomes law, even to yourself? So let's talk about that. The way I see it, increasing your internal credit score is twofold. So first of all, you will want to be so attentive to what promises, what commitments do you make, both the unspoken and the spoken. Being so much more consciously deciding to commit to something only when it serves a purpose for you, because you feel the surge and yes, like, this is for me, I want to do this, not just to follow a trend or because you feel you should or you could or whatever. Like, there has to be something in that commitment that serves a bigger desire of yours. And even as I'm saying that, I'm thinking this could actually be a fun idea, like having a track record where you list, what am I currently committed to? Because having that track record of your current commitments is going to make the second part of increasing your internal credit score so much easier. Because the second piece of this is to track your commitments, to track how it's working, how you're showing up. Not waiting to see if something is working. Because if that's our approach, we're letting the external world rule us rather than us leading ourselves. You see, motivation doesn't come from instant results, from things being here now. It comes from evidence. And nothing like evidence can keep us going. And I know you know this because anyone who's been on a weight loss journey or wanted to run 10 kilometers starting from scratch, or anyone who's been wanting to lift heavier weights or whatever, everyone knows that evidence of progress helps sustain our commitment. And staying in commitment for a longer time grows our internal credit score. The distinction I want to make here is that evidence comes in two ways. The first way is as tangible evidence of weight loss, of the fact that you can lift heavier weights, or that you can lift them more times, that you can run longer, that you are less out of breath. All of that is tangible evidence that can be measured in some way, shape, or form. What is even more crucial, and these are often the ones that we are less aware of, are the intangible evidence, which comes from noticing, I went to the gym again. I showed up again. I didn't quit. I feel better in my shoulder, my hip, my whatever. Intangible evidence could be that you fall asleep easier, that the quality of your sleep is better, that there's less mental chatter in your mind, that feeling of, I got myself back on track more quickly. Or I stayed in my body instead of responding and lashing out, or I kept walking. Intangible evidence is so important, and both of them are. But what we need to remember is that the intangible evidence often comes first. So tracking those are really, really important when we want to amp up our credit score, because having all of that evidence helps sustain the momentum, helps us stay in commitment, which raises the internal credit score. My word is law, and my word becomes more and more and more law to myself. So that idea of tracking progress actively, looking for the evidence, not to see if it works, but to look for how it's working, is actually what keeps you going and what sustains your motivation, what keeps you in momentum. And those were like real evidence, real example of how we can approach this internal credit score. But if we take this up at an elevated perspective, this really is about the practice of being able to hold energy. And when I say that, holding the energy is not about being in a good mood all the time, being high vibe and being all vibey and being all over the place. It's about being in a good, trustful energy, even when you're tired, when you're sad, when things feel slow, when the world feels like it's collapsing, or when you don't see evidence as fast as you hoped for. That's the real practice, because everyone is good on a good day. But who you are on a day where the sun isn't shining, where the wind is not in your back, where life feels a little bit against you, who you are then is what set the standards for who you are in life. And that's where you get to prove and expand your capacity to hold energy. Because when we drill all of this down, the key to all of this is that she who holds her energy and her standards the longest wins. This could go for a man as well. He who holds his energy and his standards the longest wins. And you are that person. Your internal credit score is through the roof, not from force, but from devotion. You fully back yourself. No matter what happens, I won't disconnect from my body. I won't move into my head. I don't decide or buy into the stories that it's not working. I won't abandon myself. I don't expend all my energy on plan B just because plan A felt uncomfortable. I keep walking because I know myself to be the person who keeps walking. I can lower the pace, I can increase the pace, but I keep walking. The thing is that every time you quit something, or every time you do something, or you don't do something you said you were going to do, you start telling yourself a story. And that story is that you cannot be trusted with your own words. You cannot be trusted when it gets hard. And that story, it lowers your frequency like anything. And not in a woo-woo kind of way, but in a self-respecting way. And the universe, it doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you can hold. And if you unplug every time it's inconvenient, life won't take you seriously. I know that can feel like a slap in the face, but it's the truth. Like attracts like in this universe, and no one is above universal laws. Exhale. I needed that as well. To finish this off, I want us to get really, really specific on how to rebuild your internal credit score. We touched a little bit on this already, but I want to make this stand out so perfectly clear. How do you rebuild your internal credit score? You do it slowly, you do it gently, you do it sustainably. You get to have all the big visions, but start with small promises. Promises that you can keep. Promises that help you cultivate evidence now. Promises that makes it easy to harvest evidence now. So if you're walking 2,000 steps a day today, don't promise yourself 10,000 tomorrow. Promise 2,500 steps, then 3,000. Your goal gets to be the 10,000, but break it up into pieces so that you teach yourself that you are a woman or a man of your word. It's about building a muscle, about building the stamina. Because every kept promise is another plus point to your credit score. Every time you consciously decide to commit and then take action, it's a plus point to your credit score. And every time you have the thought to commit, but then you reevaluate, if you really actually genuinely have the time, the spaciousness, the energy, and the desire before you let it be a commitment, you add a bonus point to your credit score by only consciously committing. And every time you track your progress, tangible or intangible, to keep your motivation alive so you stay longer, you add to your score. And over time, this is how your word becomes law again. This is how you build your internal credit score. This is when you commit with knowing instead of that bracing feeling where you say, I'm going to do it, and you want to pull back. This is when you keep moving instead of starting over. This is when you let time work with you. This is when you stay in the game, even without evidence that you are winning. That's what you get to do when you have a strong credit score. So every single day of your life, you get to work on this credit score, because it's not something you just obtain and have the highest score once. You want to keep it high, so that every time you tell yourself, I'm going to do it, it doesn't come from a place of, oh, I hope, but it comes from a place of knowing, because you are the one who makes it inevitable. Not the circumstances, not the world, not anything. You. So every single day you get to monitor with yourself. What promises have I made to myself today? And how can I keep them? And if you're noticing, I have too many promises, clean them up. Commit to the things that you know that you can commit to and slowly build it up. And then gather the evidence. What evidence have you gathered today that builds your trust in you? That's how you raise your internal credit score. That's how things start working for you. That's how your desires become inevitable. Because when you show up for yourself, the world responds. When your word to yourself is law, nothing can break you. Nothing. That was a nice little rant about the internal credit score and how this is such an important current in our life that rules and governs so many things. This was a pungent episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Though I might have triggered you a few times, I'm gonna be honest, this was also a bit of a reminder to myself. And you know what? If I triggered you, if I activated you in any way, I just want to say I'm here for it, because my deepest desire, and one of the things I'm most proud of doing in Dare to Rest, is to activate potential. There's so much more potential in all of us. And sometimes we get to nudge it out, and sometimes we need a little bit of a wake up call, I want to say. And I have a feeling that this episode was one of the ones where you had a bit of a wake up call, that I activated some potential. And that just feels so good. So, to end this off, I always love to thank you for being here. I so appreciate if you would rate this episode, if you rate the podcast, leave some comments, and please do share it with your friends, your colleagues, whoever could benefit from this episode. I deeply, genuinely appreciate you spreading the message and being a part of the Dare to Rest revolution. It means the world to me that you are here. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode.